gearnetwork.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I believe it's a big challenge for our building to keep things in perspective and to, if we're going to get addicted to anything, let's get addicted to the process.
And with that, we welcome you to Trust the Podcast, powered by Better Live Than Dead and the Gear Radio Network. This is episode 138.
Episode 138, people. What is good, everybody?
Man, it's Friday night. That's the exciting part. The not exciting part, we're talking about the Buffalo Bills at the Cincinnati Bengals.
Oh, yeah. That was no bueno.
No, you can hear us on betterlivethandead.com, gearnetwork.com, wherever else you listen to podcasts. As always, make sure to hit the subscribe button as well to stay up to date in the latest podcast. I am Ryan Wolfe, joined by John Cimino. John, before we even jump into the Buffalo Bills game on Sunday night, a lot of stuff happened since the last time we talked. We took a couple of days off for a little bit longer of a bye week for our, or a little bit like a mini bye week, if you will,
sure,
to allow ourselves to kind of catch up and let the Buffalo Bills let some stuff happen, and some stuff did happen. And our rundown here, first off, the trade deadline wrapped up, but the Buffalo Bills acquired cornerback Russell Douglas and a 2024 fifth-round pick from Green Bay for a 2024 third-round pick. Douglas has 15 picks in 96 games, now 97 games. Pro Football Focus has Douglas ranked as the 18th overall corner in 2023. He's out a prorated $1.1 million base salary this season with $6.25 million non-guaranteed in 2024. And also, the Buffalo Bills, John, are expecting to get a third-round pick back from the signing of Tremaine Edmonds with the Chicago Bears. So really, it's a net equal move for the Buffalo Bills, which is great. But speaking of the Bears and the Buffalo Bills, the Bills were reportedly logging the most miles when it came to acquiring a cornerback. They were pushing hard reportedly for cornerback Jalen Johnson, who is set to be an unrestricted free agent after the season. Make sure you dog-ear that name. Apparently, Buffalo came very aggressively for that player, was not able to get a deal done, and then rolled over to Green Bay and acquired Russell Douglas. Also, the Buffalo Bills placed cornerback Kaiir Elam on the injury reserve with an ankle injury. Brandon Bead said this ankle injury has lingered throughout the season, and not all of the quote-unquote healthy scratches for Elam were ultimately healthy scratches, as we can see now, but Buffalo made good use of their roster spot that opened up, subsequently signing the defensive end Linval Joseph to the active roster. Joseph, in his prime, you may remember, one of the league's most noted premier run stoppers. He played 8 games for Philadelphia last season, had 20 combined tackles and a half of a sack. John, a whole mouthful of news right there prior to the Buffalo Bills even taking the field on Sunday night.
Right.
Big moves for the Bills.
Yeah, and also keep in mind too the emotional standpoint, the emotional connection to that game and that city with that team and everybody that was there with Damar Hamlin's returns, first time since January, being there. All of that, it was a scene made for Sunday night. The game, on the other hand, though, not so much.
A lot more questions than answers for sure. The Buffalo Bills, as our recap states, cannot simply muster enough offensively. They fall to Cincinnati 24-18. Buffalo drops to 5-4 on the season. John, Twitter pointed out it's the first time since 2020 that Buffalo has lost in a rematch against a team that they had lost to either within that same season or the previous year. Prior to Sunday, they were 7-0 in such games since 2020. So with that being said, I will quickly transition us over to talking about the game and our 3 big things.
Sure, let's do.
Happen to be brought to you by puckluck.com, your one-stop resource for all of your National Hockey League sports betting action. Puckluck provides win percentages and score projections for each and every National Hockey League game to tilt the ice in your favor. Not sure what to bet or just in a rut? Not to worry. Puckluck also provides expert picks to get the puck bouncing your way. Please note, though, puckluck.com, no way affiliated with the National Hockey League, its teams, or the NHLPA. Puckluck.com provides data related to gambling and cannot guarantee the success of any suggested or related wagers. As always, please gamble responsibly. Now, John, first of the 3 big things, as always, dissecting the offense. Quarterback Josh Allen, 26 of 38, 258 passing yards, 1 touch, 1 pick. Also had 8 rushes for 44 yards and a touchdown. It's Josh's 5th straight game with an interception. Certainly something to keep an eye on. Certainly something to kind of worry about just a bit because, as we've seen, John, with this Bills offense, they simply cannot be giving away possessions.
No, not at all, especially with the defense being as depleted as it is and the struggles that they've had. Now, they haven't been the worst by any stretch of the imagination, but they certainly are not living up to the standards that we thought that they would be going in because of losing those key players, Milano and all of them. So the offense really needs to, if at any point the offense needed to carry a team, this is the point that we need to do that the offense needs to do that. And just it's simply has not been translating very well on the field at all for one reason or another, particularly with Josh Allen and his turnovers. Now, I know we were joking around in our private Gear Network chat a couple of days ago where I said, I hope Josh Allen never throws another pick again, just to keep his career pick total at the number that it's at right now. And I was saying that more in jest, but really, like, he really shouldn't be. He's got to make better decisions.
Real quick, just to jump in, John, just so we don't lose this.
Yes.
The number John was referring to, if you have guessed it, 69.
Nice. But all kidding aside, we really need to, Josh Allen really needs to I don't want to say pay better attention. It's hard. It's easy for me to say sitting in a chair right now over a microphone and not being in the game. But in the same, it just seems like the defense really has zoned in on him. And they even made mention of it last Sunday when Josh Allen is, when he's pressured, when he's feeling pressure, he wears it on his face. It's on his sleeve and he gets rattled. He really has seemed to kind of taken a step backwards from being, kind of cooling off a bit to now being in crisis mode. And that's where he's really apt to making all those mistakes. We've seen it with fumbles and now we're seeing it with interceptions. 5th straight game, like you said, Ryan.
So we've talked about a couple of these things before. Back in the day when the Bills defense was healthy and ranked top 3 in the league, there were multiple weeks where you would say, hey, the defense has picked up the offense. There's going to be a game or two where the offense needs to pick up the defense. It's the opposite now, where the offense needs to be driving that ship, and the defense may be able to pick up from time to time. Because there was a nice article by that came out with The Athletic this week talking about how the Buffalo Bills offense statistically, like analytically, is still ranking among the top offenses in the league. Problem being is that the margin for error is so low that if you throw an interception and then Cincinnati turns that interception into 7 points, that could be your difference. And it could be that you play a perfect game, both offensively and defensively, but because there is that interception, and then the defense is incredibly depleted, which we'll talk about here in later on in the podcast, that you essentially, you have to play perfect every single week. And it's, you can't expect that out of anybody, let alone Josh Allen. But the one thing that seems to be working is letting Josh kind of go back to Airbud mode, where it's just chaos all the time, but it works. It really works. I mean, Stephon Diggs ended up with 6 receptions on 7 targets for 86 yards and a touch. Dalton Kincaid had 10 receptions on 11 targets for 81 yards, although he did have that one very costly fumble that killed a promising Buffalo drive that, again, looked like it was headed toward the end zone. It dies out, and there you lose 7 points. And now you're asking your defense, okay, now stop this white hot Cincinnati Bengals offense that's rolling over everybody to allow the Bills to come back out of the field and try to score again. But the one thing that continues to pop up, John, that I wanted to ask you about before I share the stats with the information I put under Diggs and Kincaid here, it seems like Josh Allen, I don't know if it's a chemistry issue. I don't know if it's just they're not on the same page, but there are games, like we've talked about this so much, especially with it being a contract year for Gabe Davis. It seems like when Josh and Gabe are locked in, boy, you cannot stop them. Right. But when they're off, they are off. And Gabe Davis did not look like his head was anywhere near that stadium on Sunday night. Well, and he had an awful game, and he was not a factor at all.
I think it kind of ties into that whole that meme that I shared actually in the Gear Network chat a few weeks ago, where it says Josh Allen is as good as the person he's playing against. And you were like, yeah, that is the most accurate statement I've read about him.
Very right, yeah.
I almost want to kind of chalk it up to one of those situations, but again, I don't know where again, it's easy for me to say, what if maybe this, that, and the other thing. I really have to believe, and I really do believe, that just being there, the PTSD from there for those that were in that stadium on that day, on that team, living that scenario, I'd have to think that had to have something to do with perhaps one's mind not fully being present. I know, going back to scenes of some crimes, from my past, sometimes I'm like, oh man, something triggers a memory, or it's like you're looking or you're feeling skittish. And I'm not saying that's the reason for it, but I also don't want to, not throw that out there and at least consider the mental aspect of it because of where it was.
I mean, on one hand, you're a professional. The other hand, you're a human being. So that
exactly,
if that ends up being the case, it ends up being the case. But I look at it overall as the Bills clearly have something good with Stephon Diggs and Dalton Kincaid. They need that other option.
Yes.
And it's not going to be Deontay Hardy. It's not going to be Trent Sherfield. It's not going to be Dalton Knox. It's got to be Gabe Davis. And if it's not, I don't know what they're going to do. Maybe it's Khalil Shakir, but I mean, Dalton or Gabe Davis, I'm sorry, is locked in as their number 2.
Right.
But man, that was a rough showing on Sunday. One thing, another rough showing on Sunday, John. Buffalo's offense struggled offensively heading into the half, only possessed the ball for 8 minutes and 54 seconds. Stephon Diggs was overheard saying by a reputable Cincinnati Bengal reporter, quote, "I'm not even sweating. I'm not even fucking sweating."
Dog.
So, yeah, and the next line, Diggs has got that dog in him that never
dog.
It was evident on his first quarter catch and run for 34 yards where he literally just bounced off and spun around and just kept the legs moving. And that's the kind of life you want to see in this Bills offense.
Absolutely.
Not that you get hit by a guy and you go right down. This is the legs never stop going.
Yeah.
And that's again kind of what happened with Dalton Kincaid, trying to get the extra couple yards. The ball gets punched out. But on one hand, it's like, you're a rookie, protect the ball. But on the other hand, it's like, but you were kind of doing the right thing.
Right.
It just had a poor outcome. Yeah,
absolutely. Steph Diggs, we've covered quite a bit on this very podcast about just how into the game he is. Like, he's a gamer, he's a baller. He, and I'm glad to hear some of these, talks and this chatter from some of these Bills fans that called him a prima donna earlier on in the season and all that stuff. He's a cancer to the team. They're finally starting to come around and see, oh yeah, hey, maybe this dude isn't so bad. Maybe this dude really does want to play here. Maybe this dude really does want to win, and maybe he does really care. He shows it every week. He goes out every week, balls out every week. And on top of that, he's really, really like just a nice dude to everybody that, all the fans that come, takes time for them, gives them autographs, plays catch with them, all that stuff. Doesn't matter what city they're in, he'll do that. He's the warrior type person you want on that team, and he's proved it every single. I would argue, while the attention is always on the quarterbacks for every team, doesn't matter which one, but particularly this one, Josh Allen is the face of the franchise. But I do believe the heart and soul is Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, too, even though the Bills are 5-4, Stephon Diggs is on pace to have, if I'm not mistaken, one of the best years of his career. He currently ranks.
Oh, yeah.
Heading into the week, because obviously we had that barn burner of a Thursday night football game between the Bears and Panthers, which we will save you the trouble and not talk about that. But Diggs currently ranks 3rd in the NFL with 834 receiving yards, behind only A.J. Brown and Tyreek Hill. Which again, those are some pretty big names. Diggs is tied for 2nd with 7 touchdowns, first with 70 catches, and tied for 5th with 41 first down catches. So again,
and the thing is, he's at that age where he's hitting his peak, where he's hitting like the real good stretch. 29, 30, 31 is really like the age especially for a wide receiver, that they're like at top physical form. They've got the miles into where they're seasoned. They're still young enough to where they still have the moves and they still have the speed and the burst and everything like that. And it's he's at that perfect like intersection of young receiver and wise old veteran receiver. And this is like, and it's showing in his play. And just, I mean, there's got to be at least 6 plays that you can type up just in the past month alone, where he's displayed that he is that dude.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I hit a button on my computer, was making sure everything was still working. Right now, Diggs is on pace for 183 targets, 132 receptions, 1,575 yards, and 13 touchdowns on a team that may not make the playoffs. I think that's absolutely incredible.
Well, let's crawl before walk and walk before run. There's a lot of football left to play, Ryan, and I don't see the Bills. I don't see the Bills missing the playoffs.
I'm going to hit you with it. Don't you worry. I got some stats, but I also got some truth right now.
Okay.
Dalton Kincaid, per at Adam Leviton on Twitter, since Dawson Knox went down with an injury, Kincaid has played 77% of the snaps. That's 153 of 198. Had 111 routes on 82% of Josh Allen's dropbacks. 111 routes on 136 dropbacks. 26 targets for a 22% share in stat line of 23 receptions for 221 yards and a touchdown. No doubt about it. Josh Allen has realized what Dalton Kincaid can do. Dalton Kincaid has gotten comfortable, and the Bills really seem like they've got one in Dalton Kincaid here, playing tight end, wide receiver, dog. I don't even know if dog's a position, but it is now.
Yeah, it sure is with that dude.
Looking over to the rest of the offense too, John, to put a bow on the O, as we always say. Help wanted. For the first time all season, both Sean McDermott and Josh Allen found themselves despondent after a Sunday Night Football loss. I thought you'd like that $20 word there that I dropped.
Indeed.
Despondent. Buffalo had a 7-play, 85-yard touchdown drive following Cincinnati's opening touchdown drive. They then followed with a 4-play drive with a punt, 2-play drive that ended with an interception, and a 3-play drive that ended in a punt prior to halftime. They then had an 11-play drive that ended in a field goal to open the second half, followed by a 3-play drive ending in a punt, a 9-play drive ending in Kincaid's fumble, and a 12-play drive ending in a touchdown. So the consistency is continuing to lack. When they're firing on all cylinders, they're likely getting touchdowns. When they're not, though, when they had 2 drives, they gave the ball away. They had 3 drives with a punt and 2 drives with the touchdown. So again, they need to find that consistency where they're not going 3 and out, especially against a team like Cincinnati. Maybe if you're playing, I would say the New York Jets, but the Jets, no, because the Jets beat the Bills, so that's not even relevant. A bad football team, if you're playing the, I don't know, Carolina Panthers or Chicago Bears, speaking of Thursday Night Football.
Right, there we go. We got 2 ones there.
Yeah, you can afford a few 3 and outs and still be perfectly fine. You can't afford.
I don't know. I would say the New York Jets, now you probably could afford a few 3 and outs there, and be fine, because while their defense are a bunch of dogs, their offense is, for lack of better terminology.
That's absolutely fair. That is,
and so it could work, but I like picking on the Bears and the Panthers. Anyway,
I'll be honest. I was upset before the podcast because you were having some technical difficulties with your soundboard, and I said it's all good, man. We can roll without it. But now that we're here and we're knee deep in it, I'm very glad that you got
to do it. But I will say, as of press recording, we're a few minutes away from me having to take the kids to leave to go to the Amerks game, because we're going to the Amerks game tonight. Yeah, we can't fart around too much, figuratively and literally, of course.
Good Lord. I like what you did there. Talking about the Buffalo Bills, the offense, when they were playing up-tempo on Sunday night, it looked great. Mm-hmm. And then they just did something different. A different type of offense when Josh Allen and the offense ran the up-tempo game, as mentioned. But once Buffalo slowed things down, their play calling came to a screeching halt. Per at John Scott TV on Twitter, quote, Sean McDermott says the long and short of it is the Bills got away from the up-tempo offense because they wanted to get other styles of offense. That does not make any sense to me. And furthermore, John, they're searching for answers. I mean, when prompted for answers on 2 separate questions regarding the Buffalo Bills' offensive performance, Sean McDermott stated he simply did not have a good answer for the reporters. The second season under offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey quickly went from sweet to sour. I mean, look at Benjamin Solak on Twitter, at Benjamin Solak, points out, quote, the Bills have the best offensive EPA per drive in football. The Bills have the second best point differential in football, but the Bills are 5-4. Brett Coleman, KOLLMANN on Twitter, goes further, quote, additional fun fact, since the Bills skid started in week 5 against Jacksonville, Buffalo has the third best successful play percentage at 42.2 or 42.4%. They are also 25th in successful drive percentage, touchdown or field goal result at only 31.4%. A lot of empty calories on this offense, a very weird team. I don't know a better way to explain it other than there are a lot of empty calories. That is phenomenal.
That is actually a picture perfect way to describe it. The empty it's like the offense is a Coca-Cola Classic, and the defense right now with all the injuries is Coke Zero Sugar.
I like that. The one thing I wanted to point out too before I forget is that we always try to explain what terms are when we say them, so we're not just saying random things and you go, sure. EPA is expected points added. So the Buffalo Bills offense leads the NFL in offensive expected points added per drive, but are still 5-4. Also reported by @JohnScottTV on Twitter. Buffalo Bills offensive players held a players-only meeting this week, the second of the season. Both were led by Latavius Murray. Clearly, this offense, John, still believes in themselves, still believes that they are able to make that next step and win football games consistently and be effective offensively consistently. But it doesn't help, rolling over to our second of the three big things here, breaking down the defense, it doesn't help that the defense continues to get hurt. Linebacker Terrell Bernard left the game, did not return with a concussion. Cornerback Christian Benford played only 34 plays on Sunday night, 49% of the defensive snaps. Left Sunday's game with a hamstring injury, did not play in the second half. Cornerback Dane Jackson also left the game with an injury. I know Micah Hyde left the game with a stinger. There's the laundry list of players right now. I believe the Buffalo Bills have 6 of their starters defensively that are on the injury report coming up for this week's game. Not great. Also, @Nate Geary Sports points out on Twitter, if Buffalo was without Christian Benford and Dane Jackson in week 10, they would be down to their 5th and 6th cornerback.
Good Lord. That is not good. That is not good at all. Wow.
And I mean, they went out and got Rasul Douglas, who played. I'm going to kind of jump around here. Rasul Douglas played 42 plays on Sunday night, 60% of the defensive snaps. They've got a guy who could step up and step in and play very well, but the depth is. I mean, you can say like if Daquan Jones went down and Matt Milano went down, and you can't replace those guys, but at least you can try to get some good depth, and you didn't. That's one thing. But when you're down to potentially your 5th and 6th set of cornerbacks, you can't predict that.
It's going to be real. It's going to be real hard to bounce back from that. You know, you could have the most high powered, potent offense if you want, but if you couldn't stop a nosebleed on the other side, you're always going to be playing even or catching up. You know, that's just the way it works. And when you're talking getting down to the 5th and 6th string cornerbacks, like that's a problem. That's a major problem. Yeah. And I don't know how many adjustments could do that. You know, whether or not Leslie Frazier was your defensive coordinator. And, you know, that was the thing we talked about earlier in this season, was whether, you know, Sean McDermott was going to be able to coach these guys kind of like, you know, Leslie Frazier did, and have them playing like they are. But even it didn't matter who the coach is at this point. When you have injuries this bad, you're going to feel it.
It's like you're riding the bull for the 8 seconds, and you're like 6.5 seconds in, and you're just holding on for dear life at this point.
Yep.
But it's good when you can bring in guys like nose tackle Linval Joseph, played 30 plays on Sunday night. That's 43% of the defensive snaps. Defensive end Leonard Floyd and defensive tackle Jordan Phillips, they each recorded a half sack on the only instance the Buffalo Bills defense was able to get their hands on quarterback Joe Burrow of the Cincinnati Bengals. Also, very concerning to see linebacker Von Miller continues to work his way back, played 34% of the snaps, 24 plays, but just simply still is not looking like himself, like that explosive pass rusher that he has been throughout his entire career. Not sure if it's just a comfortability thing, if it's a consistency thing, whatever it is. But the front four has found themselves all in a slump as a whole, struggling to consistently get pressure on opposing quarterbacks. As we saw earlier in the year, when the Bills front four was able to get that somewhat consistent pressure, it takes pressure off the linebackers, off the safeties, off the cornerbacks, and subsequently makes everyone better because, hey, it's a lot easier to defend when the quarterback has, 2 seconds to throw the ball instead of 4 seconds to throw the ball. As minuscule of a difference as it is, that's years. That's light years in football and quarterbacking. And the Buffalo Bills defense is, again, just letting them control the pace of play, control how long the quarterback has to throw the ball. And not great, but digging deeper into the defense here, Nate Tice @Nate_Tice on Twitter points out we know the Buffalo Bills defense is missing Matt Milano, but he points out just how much. With Milano, the Bills were 5th in the league at 40.5% passing success rate allowed without Matt Milano. That number has ticked up to 49.3%.
Wow.
31st in the league.
Jeez. And I know you said back when the injury happened in that London game that losing Matt Milano was the equivalent of the offense losing Josh Allen, but holy hell, I didn't realize it was like legit like that.
Oh, it gets better, John. It gets better.
Okay.
With Milano, Buffalo's defense was allowing negative 0.19 expected points added per play, tied for second in the league. Without Milano, that number has shifted to 0.03 expected points added per play allowed, which is 28th in the league.
Jeez. Wow.
That
is quite the jump.
Matt Milano, he finally got his flowers last year as an all-pro linebacker, much deserved. He's kind of been Buffalo's hidden secret for a very long time.
Right.
He is one of the best off-the-ball linebackers in the league, if I'm not mistaken. But what he does as a linebacker makes everybody around him that much better, and that's what the Bills miss. Again, like I said before, I'm going to repeat it, and John, you just said it as well. Matt Milano is the Josh Allen of the Bills defense. I don't care who else you look at, who else you point fingers at. That is the impact Matt Milano has on this defense. And when you talk about
a stat differential like that, that's the type of player that is in the NFL top 100, even if they're not playing through the season,
He has not been ruled out. Daquan Jones has not been ruled out. If they are able to come back this year, we will see an immediate overnight difference in this Buffalo Bills defense. So, count your lucky stars, pray to whatever God you believe in, and just hope that the Bills can hang on for dear life until Matt Milano can come back, because even just to have his presence in that lineup is going to make a huge difference for a Buffalo Bills defense that has just had a hell of a time recently.
Well, I'll tell you, it may not be the road that everybody wants the Bills to take, but the road to the playoffs may still, be an option for them, given what injuries are doing to other teams around the league. And
hey, man, that's a good cliffhanger. That's a good cliffhanger. What we'll do, we'll take our quick commercial break here, as we always do. We'll wrap up the week. We'll move forward to the next week's game, and we'll talk about the playoffs.
Playoffs.
Because
that's a sound I need for the board.
That is a sound we need for the board right now. It's the second week in November. Things are going to start heating up. The contenders, the pretenders are going to start separating. So again, we'll be back with more Trust the Podcast here on the Gear Radio Network right after this. And we're back here. Trust the Podcast on the Gear Radio Network. We are wrapping up week 9, our third of the 3 big things. John, my man, take it away.
Oh, of course. I got to go ahead and get that wonderful music going here. Yeah. Boom. Here we go. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Around the NFL. It's brought to you by Go Frost Yourself, located in Rochester, New York. Go Frost Yourself. It does what other local bakeries do not. They bake from scratch. Oh my God, I'm losing my place here. Creating recipes themselves and using the best, freshest ingredients. Give it a damn microphone, producer. I'm going to walk it over here because I can't see. Creating recipes themselves, use the best fresh ingredients they can to find and create delicious flavors for customers daily. Molly and Jen. Hi, Molly. Hi, Jen. Work tirelessly to create what Go Frost Yourself today, and their passion can be tasted in the items that they make. When you find yourself looking for an item for a special occasion, or maybe you just want to try their incredible cinnamon rolls, if you are local, give them a shout. Go visit their storefront, 2544 Ridgeway Avenue, or visit them online on the web at gofrostyourself.com.
I think the music.
I have to admit. So breaking down the wall. I'd like to take one of your terminology there. My screen completely froze with the thing up there, and I went on memory. Did I hit it?
Yeah.
I legit, seriously? I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting for the thing to refresh on my iPad here. I went off of memory.
I mean, it drives me a little crazy because you did that, and the music was kind of killing you a little in certain parts. But yeah, you got it.
All right, cool. Sorry, I'll do better next time.
That's okay. That's okay, man. Cleaning house. We're going to start off in Las Vegas. The calendar turned to November, and Las Vegas once again decided to clean house shortly after midnight. Head coach Josh McDaniels and GM Dave Ziegler were fired after going 9-16 in their tenure. Linebacker coach Antonio Pierce is now serving as the interim head coach, and assistant GM Champ Kelly will serve as the interim GM. Sounds like a fake name, but whatever. Antonio Pierce, you may remember, a 9-year NFL veteran and Super Bowl champion, part of the New York Giants squad that defeated the 16-0 New England Patriots in the Super Bowl. He made
he is a
dog.
Yeah, you're not kidding. He made his NFL head coaching debut against his former team on Sunday, a 30-6 victory over the New York Giants. Aiden O'Connell was also named the starting quarterback moving forward after that victory. Pierce is the 8th different head coach, interim or regular, since Mark Davis took over the Raiders in October 2011. If it's one thing that doesn't survive in Vegas, it's a head coach. If there is one thing that does survive in Vegas, it's that shitty haircut that Mark Davis has.
Well, I tell you what, if he does, if Mark Davis knows any better, if he's learned anything from the Rich Bisaccia, or I think that's how you pronounce his name, mistake that he made last year, because those boys were playing for him. And then he ended up turning around, and not last year, 2 years ago. And then he ended up turning around and hiring McDaniel and letting him go. The way that the Raiders responded to Antonio Pierce, like, dog,
the videos
you got like, I'm not even the Raiders fan, but man, I want to run through a wall for that guy, man. That dude he had him hyped, he had him going ready to go. He was Raiders, and he fits that system. He fits that whole optic. He fits it all, and I'm hoping, at least for his sake, that Mark Davis doesn't go Mark Davis on him and bring somebody else that inevitably would be fired within a season and a half.
Now, John, I know you're running tight on time, so I'm just going to put it this way. I was going to say something about the Raiders. Oh, yeah, there was a story that came out this week because all the Josh McDaniels funny stories are coming out. Apparently, he traded Peyton Hillis to the Browns because his wife was attracted to Peyton Hillis.
I did see that. I thought that was like The Onion. That was actually legit?
That's apparently legit. It's all coming from all of his old team members, and they're all just spilling the tea on Josh McDaniels and how much of a wacko he is. But hey, this next part of our segment is going to be called Studying Spanish, Speaking French, because that was the quote that we got. It was an incredible quote. 5 days after being acquired by the Minnesota Vikings, quarterback Josh Dobbs, who is a legit rocket scientist, led Minnesota to an improbable 31-28 victory over the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday. Rookie quarterback Jaron Hall left his first career start with a concussion, opening the door for Dobbs, who ended up going 20 for 30, 158 yards passing with 2 touchdowns, 7 carries for 66 yards and a touchdown. Dobbs fought through some obvious adversity of not knowing the offense incredibly well, along with some self-inflicted adversity, 2 fumbles, 3 sacks, and a safety, but still managed to pull Minnesota to the win. Post-game, Dobbs said, quote, "It's like if you were taking AP Spanish all year and you showed up on Wednesday and someone told you you have an AP French exam on Sunday and you got to go execute. Someone's going to talk to you in Spanish and translate it to French." Now, Josh Dobbs, they've been talking about that Josh Dobbs may be a guy who will get quarterback QB2 money this offseason, which well-deserved, because even if there's something to be said about a guy who can play in multiple different systems, multiple different times, and do the job. He may not be great, but he does the job you ask him to do, and that's all that's requested of him.
Of course.
Now, sometimes the path to success is not a straight line. And again, I'm not sitting here saying that Dobbs is the next Patrick Mahomes. I'm just saying this man has wanted to be in the NFL, has fought his way to stay in the NFL. He was drafted by Pittsburgh in the 4th round in 2017, the NFL draft. He spent 2017 to 2019 with Pittsburgh, was traded to Jacksonville September 19th, 2019, after Nick Foles broke his clavicle. He was then waived in 2020 by Jacksonville, reclaimed by Pittsburgh, spent 2020, 2021 with Pittsburgh, including an IR stint in 2021. On January, February, March, April. That would be April. Thank you. April 9th, 2022, he signed a 1-year deal with Cleveland. He was waived on November 28th, 2022, when noted sexual assaulter and overall terrible human being Deshaun Watson returned from suspension. He then signed to Detroit's practice squad a few days later on December 5th, 2022.
That's a great day.
He was then signed off of Detroit's practice squad by Denver on December 21st, 2022.
You have Tennessee written down there.
Thank you. It's Tennessee. Thank you. There's so much going on here. I'm trying to get through it all and make sense of it. He signed off of Detroit's practice squad went to the Titans December 21, 2022. Thank you for paying attention, John. I was going to say there's a test at the end, but you are paying attention. In 2 games with Tennessee.
I took AP Spanish, man.
He went 0-2. Well, come on now. 411 passing yards, 2 touches, 2 picks. He then signs with Cleveland in the offseason on March 23rd, 2023. In August 24th, 23 this year, he was traded to Arizona, went 1-7 in 8 games, 1,569 passing yards, 8 touches, 5 picks with 258 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. Was apparently promised by the dork, cornball, white bread ass head coach of the Cardinals that he was not going to be traded. That was a lie detector to test determined. He was traded to Minnesota on Halloween 23, played in his first game November 5th, 2023. The cool stat here, he became the first quarterback in NFL history with consecutive 3 touchdown games for 2 different franchises. Pretty cool. And
that's insane.
And this guy may get the bag in the offseason as well. So good.
You know what? Good for him. He's one of the good ones, and I'm glad he's seeing success and getting some flowers and getting some opportunities to show that he does want it and he does improve. All hats off to him. I hope he gets paid, and I hope he becomes the Patrick Mahomes. Quite frankly, we need people like him in those positions, and we need people like him representing the league. He's just overall a really nice guy, a really good guy.
The great part too is he's awesome on TikTok, which is very important these days.
Well, I don't know. I still don't do the TikTok, Ryan, and I'm not coming. I'm not joining the crowd there.
He's got TJ Hawkinson. He's got Jordan Addison. He's getting Justin Jefferson back. He's got Alexander Madison in the backfield. I mean, they've got a decent team there in Minnesota. They just, again, when you win a lot of 1-score games, that pendulum is going to swing back at some point in time, and they're feeling the brunt this year. But one more thing I want to ask you, John, before I look ahead. The Kansas City Chiefs defeated the Miami Dolphins 21-14.
Mm-hmm.
Miami.
What's the question?
Miami has not defeated a team with a winning record in, 412 days. Oof. As of today, going 0-7 in their last 7 games against teams over 500. Their last win, you may remember, John, September 25th, 2022. It was week 3 of the 2022 season versus Buffalo, where Miami tried to kill the Bills players. Remember, it was like 125 degrees on the sideline. Guys were actively cramping up while playing.
And they limped off that field. They barely made that one. They almost won that game.
The Bills almost won that game. The question for you, John.
Yes.
Are the Miami Dolphins not ready for prime time?
I have no reason to believe that they are, because in any given opportunity that they've had, there's been something that has they are who we thought they were, or were they? They didn't come to play when it was that big hype game against Buffalo earlier in the season. Did not come to play there. Barely came to play against the Kansas City Chiefs. I know they've got the Jets coming up on Black Friday, and that's going to be another spotlight game. First game Black Friday. Everybody's going to be watching it, regardless of the offensive woes. The defense, the New York Jets defense, scares the crap out of people. I've not seen anything with this Miami Dolphins team to let me think that they would be ready for the bright lights of a home playoff game, an AFC championship game, or a Super Bowl. I don't see it. I don't see it because they have not done it with any degree of consistency. The only thing that they've been consistent in is being inconsistent against teams above 500.
They're consistent in beating the crap out of teams that aren't good, but they're that inconsistent with beating very good football teams.
Right.
Our look ahead here, if the season ended today, John, I know you've been waiting for it. The Buffalo Bills officially out of the playoffs. They are in the hunt. Now, the New York Times has a nice little interactive playoff simulator. Now, how can the Buffalo Bills make the playoffs right now?
Oh, God.
As of recording time, the Buffalo Bills have a 38% chance of making the playoffs. With that being said, if the Buffalo Bills finish their season 5-3, those 5 wins coming against Denver, the Jets, the Chargers, the Patriots, and Week 18 at Miami, which, if all plays out well, Miami will have wrapped up the division by then. And then the Bills lose to the Eagles, Chiefs, and Cowboys, which, again, none of that's guaranteed, but you're just trying to kind of spitball here. If the season plays out that way with no other help, the Buffalo Bills have an 89% chance of making the playoffs. So, again, at this point, this Bills team does not get any benefit of the doubt. This Bills team should not win games, could not win games. It's, hey, just go out and play the game and win. Should you win? Doesn't matter. Can you win? Doesn't matter, because the Bills have lost games they should have won and won games they should have lost. We've seen both ways this year. So again, just go 1-0 every single week. If you beat the Chiefs, you're in the playoffs. If you beat the Eagles, you're locked in the playoffs. If you beat the Cowboys, you're locked in the playoffs. Even if, say that they lose to the Dolphins the final week of the season, but still manage to beat the Cowboys or the Chiefs or the Eagles, they still have a pretty good shot of making the playoffs at likely what's going to happen, finishing 10-7, or if they're able to pull it off and pull an upset and go 6-2 in the next handful of games, and they finish 11-6, then they go from playing on the road in the wild card weekend to potentially hosting in the wild card weekend. But again, we'll see how this Bills team responds. One thing I want to point out too, John, very quickly, there were some roster moves made. The reason I'm mentioning this is because a peak name in the National Football League. First off, they did sign safety Trey Norwood. We don't want to leave him out to the practice squad on Tuesday afternoon. They also signed tight end Trey McKitty. Love that name.
Trey McKitty,
played for the Chargers most recently. Also signed to the practice squad as well. Now, moving on to more important things here, John. Week 11, Buffalo Bills versus the Denver Broncos at Highmark Stadium on Monday Night Football. Kickoff 8:15 p.m. on ESPN and ABC.
Tickets as low as $50.
Dude, they've probably been giving tickets away by Monday night.
I'm not going to lie. I'm kind of keeping an eye on it. Like I just might.
It would be an experience for sure. It would very much be a fantastic experience. But with that being said, Denver 3-5, fourth in the AFC West, 9th seed in the AFC. They have scored 172 points, allowed 226 points. Russell Wilson, quarterback, 1,613 passing yards, 16 touches, 4 picks with 201 rushing yards. No slander on the man, on Mr. Unlimited.
Unlimited.
No slander. He's having a good year. The Denver Broncos defense is awful. But John, 78.9% of America believes that Buffalo will defeat Denver, according to ESPN's matchup predictor. I am one of those 78.9, mostly because if Buffalo doesn't defeat Denver, I don't know what I'm going to do.
If Buffalo doesn't defeat Denver, Ryan, I think the first 5 to 10 minutes of the next week's podcast is going to be all you. But I as well am part of the 78.9. I do think Buffalo beats them. Again, the defense is going to be the key here. We know the offense is going to find a way to score. They're always going to find a way to score. But this defense, and especially with the way Russell Wilson has been protecting the ball, maybe it's not the sexiest. Maybe he doesn't have all the big passing yards or whatever, but he's not turning the ball over. And that was the problem last year with him. He seems to be correcting that right now, and is among one of the league's better, rated quarterbacks this year. So I think it's going to really be all on the defense. This one, if the defense can hold can hold the fort and keep keep Russ from cooking, they should be very academic for Buffalo.
What you're saying, first off, is that if they can make Russell Wilson be Mr. Limited, they can win the game. Thank you.
But if he's Mr. Unlimited, I practiced the pitch and how he said it. That's
Broncos country. Let's ride. Yeah, let's ride.
No, I've got the Bills on this one. I've got probably a close game though, because again, the defense. I have zero confidence in the defense. Pitching a shutout or anything.
Well, real quick too, John. I and we've talked about this in past episodes and also through text messaging in our Gear Network chat here. It seems like Russell Wilson is becoming the scapegoat in Denver. In looking at it, I believe the hype. I believe the Russell Wilson is the problem hype. Don't get me wrong. I jumped on that train, and then after a couple stops, I'm like, hey, something doesn't smell right. Train's a little weird. Jump off, you take a look, and you're like, oh, okay, he's not the problem. The quarterback who has 16 touchdowns and 4 interceptions and 1,600 passing yards is not the problem.
Right.
It's other things that are the problem.
Right.
He may not be Russell Wilson of Seattle,
Right.
That's the case. I mean, that's going to happen because they had something, really good in Seattle. We now can recognize that very much so.
Of course.
If the Super Bowl victory and almost back-to-back Super Bowl victory did not give that away, John. But with that being said,
he's still fun to make fun of. He's still fun to troll.
Don't get me wrong.
He does it to himself.
If we were doing a dork ranking of the NFL,
he'd be right up there.
It'd be very close between John. If we're doing coaches and players, very close 1A, 1B, Jonathan Gannon to Russell Wilson for that top spot. If we're talking just players, it's got to be Russell Wilson. But if anybody out there listening to this podcast has any candidates or potential dark horses, maybe some upset specials for that NFL dork watch,
what if we do that for like the final podcast of the season for Trust the Podcast? We give out the Trust the Podcast season dork awards.
We should just we need to just have a soundboard with all sorts of stuff. We got
plenty of time for that. But in closing,
especially John, if the Bills continue to proverbially, what am I talking? Did I just have a stroke? If they are hypothetically sitting on their proverbial team wide nuts, then we may have a lot of airtime to fill because again, John, as mentioned before, it's week 11. Mm-hmm. It's the second week of November.
Yes.
The Super Bowl's in February, and that ain't next week. So we're going to have a lot of airtime to fill if the Buffalo Bills decide to be bad.
And on that note, Chris Berman, take us home.
No one circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills.
For John Cimino, I am Ryan Wolfe. As always, we are Trust the Podcast.
You're not.
We will catch you same time, same place next week. As always, thanks for tuning in. And go Bills.
1, 2, 3, 4.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.